Hey guys, today I'm going to be running through 3 of the cycles that I assigned to you. These are the 3 that we're basically going to be covering the majority of in this chapter, along with the projects you're going to get at the end of the week here. Okay, so I'm going to run through these. It should be fairly quick and straightforward, and if you need to see any of this again, by all means, rewind it. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a look at my board here. As best you can here. All right, so on the left side, we have the water cycle, which starts off with a body of water. Now, obviously, this is in its liquid phase, but as it heats up and what else have you, it will turn into a gas and it will evaporate, going into our, our atmosphere, where it will condense and turn into a gas, or excuse me, it will turn into a cloud, okay? This cloud will then precipitate. Now, if you've ever seen anything, if you've seen rain or snow, that's an example of precipitation, okay? And then it rains, and then it runs off back into the water or the ocean. And this is the water cycle. It's very straightforward. It's very easy. It's very easy to understand, okay? In the interest of saving time, I'm going to jump right over here. Sorry, I'm moving you around a lot here. This, kiddos, is the carbon cycle. Now, the carbon cycle usually starts off with now this is my drawing, so you know how my drawings go. Starts off with a tree or plant. Plants feed themselves with photosynthesis. And those of you guys remember anything about biology, for a plant to do photosynthesis, it needs to take in CO2 or carbon. Okay, and then once it does that, it releases oxygen, all that good stuff, okay? Then, it takes in the carbon, and then eventually it will die, correct? Where it will go into the ground. And this right here is supposed to represent animals in general. I drew a crappy picture of a dog. Animals, you and me, we eat these guys. We die too. We go into the soil. Thus, plants and animals are made of carbon, so we put carbon into the ground. And eventually, over millions and millions of years, we become fossil fuels, which will then, I forgot my arrow, be burnt up by factories, automobiles, you name it. When we burn fossil fuels, it releases carbon into the atmosphere, back again, to where plants will absorb it again, and then, so we just keep going around and around in a circle here. Keep in mind that rainforests, plant life in general is receding everywhere, so eventually the amount of carbon, now obviously we know already that this cycle right here is, we're putting way too much carbon into the atmosphere for us to do anything or to come back from. We all know that eventually we're all going to be swimming, boating everywhere, that sort of thing, because eventually our ice caps are going to melt, which is a whole other issue to deal with on top of what we're already dealing with. Okay, and then the next one I have to kind of hold up because I kind of ran out of room here, which is this. It's upside down. Which is this. And I hit my laptop. Go me. This is called the phosphorus cycle. And I'm going to go over it as best I can. And I apologize if it's kind of hard to read, especially down over here. I'll do my best. If I have time, I'll rewrite it on the board. Okay? All right. So the way this works is this. You start off with plants, again. Okay? Plants absorb phosphorus from the soil, because we have phosphorus in our ground or in our soil. Healthy soil should have an equal amount of phosphorus and nitrogen for it to grow plants. Okay, so it absorbs some of it. Animals, herbivores or omnivores, eat said plants. Okay, and then, eat plants. Okay, and then when we die, decomposers, this is supposed to be a mushroom, break down plant and animal parts and put it back into the soil. Now, what this has to do with over here is that when it rains, it goes down a river, down a mountain, and it weathers and takes rock particles with it and goes to the bottom of a lake or river or sea, what else have you, and it deposits it in the form of sediment. Sediment are just rock particles, which eventually will become rocks. This broken down phosphorus that's in the soil will contribute to putting phosphorus into these new rocks. That makes sense? So again, it all starts off over here, plants absorbing phosphorus from the soil, cows and organisms such as you and me eating it, getting phosphorus in our bodies, eventually we'll die. decomposers taking the phosphorus from us and putting it back into the soil, where it'll eventually be deposited into some rocks and that sort of thing. Okay, but this is the phosphorus cycle. Okay, and actually, now that I look at this, I didn't do a terrible job, I guess. So let's review over most of this real quick. Okay, so again, the easiest one is the water cycle, which is you have a body of water of some sort, which will evaporate and turn into a gas, where it will then condense. You guys have all watched that. Usually when I teach this, I show the video of Family Guy where this mug is next to a window and all of a sudden it becomes wet. He's like, what is that? That is condensation. And they're like, well, how come I have my windows wet? I'm like, that too is condensation. But anyways, and then eventually it'll turn back into a cloud, which it will precipitate or rain or snow back onto the land, which it will then run off and go into the water. The ocean, what else have you. Now, those of you who don't know anything about anything, we have 70% of our planet is covered in water. Now, more specifically, it's covered in salt water. This salt water, when it evaporates, it leaves the salt in the ocean, which is amazing. Because once it evaporates, it's basically, well, for the most part, it's pretty safe to drink once it rains. For the most part. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, what I'm trying to pass on to you is that rain coming down doesn't have salt in it. It has other things in it, such as phosphorus, nitrogens, and carbon in the form of carbonic rain and stuff like that. So, but anyway, I'm just saying that the ocean will leave the salt back on the ocean, which is nice. Okay, and then coming over here to the carbon cycle, again, we're starting off with plants doing photosynthesis, taking in carbon from the atmosphere. And then once this organism dies, the plants, and once we die, we put our carbon that's made up of, that plants and animals are made up of, we put it back into the ground, and eventually we become fossil fuels that we as humans or somebody else will burn up in their vehicles, factories, you name it, and releasing the carbon back into the atmosphere. Okay? And then one more time, I want to go over this one, the phosphorus cycle, because these are the important ones that we need to go over. Plants will take phosphorus out of the soil, and then they will get eaten by you and me or of some other organism, which will then, we will then die eventually and then become decomposed by decomposers like worms, mushrooms, stuff like that. Who will then put the phosphorus back in the ground. It'll rain, we'll get runoff, we'll get silt and rock particles that settle back down to the bottom. And this phosphorus will get mixed into that rock particles, and eventually these rocks will harden over millions and millions of years. And then we end up with rocks that end up having phosphorus in them. Okay? All right. I wanted to make this nice, short, and sweet. I didn't want to belabor you, but these are the three that we want to talk about. The nitrogen cycle is good to talk about as well, but I think these are the three most important ones when it comes to this class. Okay? At the end of the week here, you're going to have a project that I'm going to, I guess I could go over now. Basically, what you're going to do is I'm going to give you a corporation of some sort, and then you are going to say how that corporation affects these three cycles. You're going to type that out, do some research, that sort of thing. And then you're going to do a food web, probably for our, a food web that you would see in North Dakota, probably find a picture of it and just copy and paste it sort of thing, and say how that corporation would affect this food web as well. Okay, but again, I just kind of want to go over that real quick, especially your project at the end of the week here, and see how we play into all of these. Because again, we as humans, we affect all of this in a very specific way, usually in a negative fashion. Okay, but I just wanted to run over these, dumb it down from those videos that I gave you, just so you guys get an idea. Hopefully this is a little bit more straightforward than those videos, because those videos are probably made a little bit more complicated than they need to be. Okay? All right. Thanks for watching. Last things, I miss you guys, and I hope you're doing okay. All right. Until next time. See ya.